Hey guys, I'm Brogan. Today in this video, we are diving straight into the Jarhead light gun bundle today. This is a light gun controller paired with a plug and play light gun game console here. Super excited to test this out. This just launched on Kickstarter recently, so they are just getting started, but it looks like a very promising product here. We're gonna find out for ourselves though. We're gonna unbox this, we're gonna take a look at the layout and design here, and then of course test it out. Let's get started. All right, let's go ahead and start opening this up. Wow, this is much larger than what I was anticipating. Here's the actual gun right here. I'm gonna set this aside. I wanna take a closer look at this, but let's unpack everything else first. So we've got some IR sensors right here. I like the fact that there's only two. A lot of times we have to use 4 IR sensors. 2 is much more convenient. It looks like they sit on top, I would assume. So connects over via USB-A connection. Definitely liking that. Here we have our power supply cable for the actual plug and play console right here. Let's see what the voltage is on here. It looks like we are at 12 volts for output. And here is the actual plug and play console. I love the look of this. Looks very unique, matches the gun perfectly with the camo sort of print on here. But we have a cooling fan, I assume, on the top. We have some USB-A connections over here. We also have some buttons over here on the side, which I'm not sure what they do, but we're gonna find out. Backside here is where we're gonna have all of our ports. So we have our HDMI port here, USB-A port, power supply connection right here, looks like a data connection right there, and then I assume this is our on and off switch over here on the back side. So we're gonna go ahead and, and we have a micro SD card slot on the front, which I overlooked. Let's go ahead and eject that and just see what this is. It's a Kingston 64 gigabyte micro SD card, so I assume that has our operating system and all of our games included on it. That's everything inside of here. So in order to get this up and running, it does not come with an HDMI cable. So you are going to need your own HDMI cable, but the way that this is going to work is very simple. We have our IR sensors right here. We do have to position these on the top of our screen when we go to connect this over. But in terms of connecting it over to the console, it just has to plug directly into one of the USB-A ports on the actual console. So I'm gonna put it into the front right there, just for easy access. Power supply cable connection is going to plug into the backside right here. This obviously goes into an outlet. This goes up onto the TV. But let's take a look at the actual gun now. So I'm gonna bring all this to the side. All right, guys, here is the light gun itself. You guys can see how this looks on both sides here. Love the camo print on here. I think this looks really sharp. This reminds me instantly of a PS3 style light gun. Not so much with the overall shape, but the barrel up here being a cylinder like this and having the large tip on here. It definitely reminds me of PS3 style. And then if we take a look at the labeling for the buttons here, the labeling on the buttons is all the shapes of a PlayStation style controller. So we have our triangle, we have our circle, we have our square, X, and then we have start and select over here, all on the left-hand side of the barrel. It says Jarhead right here. If we go to the back side, notice that we have a oversized joystick here. So you can easily move that with your thumb while still being able to shoot. So that'll be great for those games where you have to navigate your way. A lot of light gun games, you're just pretty much working on shooting and aiming. But there are a lot of games out there like, for example, you have a lot of light gun games where you're also navigating your character around. So I can see that being very useful. Over here we have 2 buttons. We have a button up here in the front. We have this button over here, which is going to change this from single shot to multi-shot. So you can make this a machine gun, or you can make this like a pistol that you have to engage the trigger for every single shot fired. We also have a bell right over here, which I'm not sure if that's silent mode versus, giving you feedback. And then we also have a power button right here. So when we turn that on, it does light up right up here. When we initially turn it on, you also hear it click within. I do believe we're gonna get some feedback out of this when we start engaging that trigger and playing games, but I think it's time to do that. Oh wait, we need to find our dongle. I believe it's located down here, if I'm not mistaken. There we go. So you have to just pull back the little cover over here where the magazine would be, and that's where you're going to locate your USB dongle. This is what you're gonna plug into your game console. So we're gonna go ahead and we'll plug that into the front port over here next to our IR sensors, just like that. We can go ahead and cover this back up now that we've removed that. And one more thing I forgot to mention down here, we have a Type-C cable connection at the end here. That's how we're going to actually charge our light gun. It doesn't run off batteries, it charges up via Type-C connection. Ironically, there's no Type-C cable included in the packaging, so you have to provide your own, it appears. but we also have sensors down here or light indicators that will actually detect whether you are player 1 or player 2 on here. So we should be good to go. We've got this powered on. We're gonna connect over everything and test it out. All right, guys, we've just booted this up. We've got this all set up and ready to go. So it's telling us where to align our IR sensors on here. So you can see the indication right here for IR sensor 1, IR sensor 2. I love the fact that this automatically adjusts to the screen size that we are connected to. So it says right there, press trigger to start. We have the gun in hand right here. If I press my trigger, there we go, we advance into this. Now, what we're gonna do here is we can select our core up here by just simply aiming and pulling the trigger. This is where you get to pick the emulator that you want to connect over to. So we can go into, let's say, we'll go into MAME for right now. Now we go into content selection, and we could choose between these 5 different titles right here. I'm gonna go into Alien 3 the gun, and let's test this out. All right, guys, we jumped into the Jarhead light gun experience here today, and I'm really a big fan of the light gun here. It's super lightweight. In fact, it's the lightest light gun I've ever tested out before, which, you know, after reviewing a lot of products here on the channel, I typically associate lightweight with lesser quality. That just usually seems to be the way that it goes, but that's not the way that it went here with the Jarhead light gun. This is lighter than all the other light guns I've tested out before, but it's just as high quality in my opinion, very durable, lightweight in a way that actually I think makes sense. It's easier to navigate this gun, it's easier to aim and move it around, and you're not going to fatigue as easily using this light gun. The trigger has really light action, so there's really no issues with pulling the trigger. You're not going to cramp up as easily. Your shoulder's not going to hurt because it's not as heavy to hold up. Your arm's not going to hurt. So you're going to be able to game a lot longer with this light gun. Now, the accuracy was on point here today. Only 2 IR sensors, which initially I was a little concerned with. I wasn't sure how well it was going to track or how accurate it was going to be. But it goes through the software. It tells you exactly where you should line them up on your screen. Typically, you want to be in thirds. So you'll move from one edge over a third of the way over. That's going to be your first sensor. You're going to go another third over. That's going to be your second sensor. And then the other end of the third will be the other end of the screen. So that's just a way to gauge it without those indicators, just in the event that you don't go ahead and purchase the console that's included in here, because you can get this as just the gun, you can get it with the IR sensor, you can get it with the console. There's multiple ways that you can get this by supporting the Kickstarter campaign, but really a big fan of what this offers. Now, the joystick on the back seems to have great action. Unfortunately, I couldn't put it to the test because none of the games included on the console utilize that in any way, shape, or form. So again, it seems interesting, seems to be very on point from what I can gauge, but just wasn't able to test that out today. So really had a great experience with this though. It took me a little getting used to for light gun games where you have to pinpoint your target. So stuff like Time Crisis, games like Duck Hunt, for example, you're pinpointing your target and pulling the trigger to execute your shot. It takes a little getting used to, mainly because it's just a much lighter gun than what I'm used to. So it just, you know, tracks differently, behaves differently, but you get used to it very quickly, to the point where I really actually prefer the lighter feel than some of the heavier options out there. And then games like Alien 3 the gun, which is essentially a rail shooter, you don't have to be as precise with your accuracy. You can kind of just move that gun all over the place because you're engaging the machine gun function there, where it's just multiple shots fired at all times. You can pretty much play the whole game by just laying on that trigger. Now, there's different settings on here. You can put this in silent mode, which it's currently not in. All we have to do is just push that button over here where it has the little bell up there. Now when I engage the trigger, it's totally silent other than you just hearing the trigger, you know, sliding into place. If we want to have that feedback where we hear the clicks on here, we just pull that back like so. And then we can actually choose between single shot and machine gun. So currently I think we're in machine gun. Exactly. So if we're playing Alien 3 the gun, that's very fitting because you're using a machine gun in that game. So you're just all over the place. And notice that it doesn't trail off in intensity the longer that you hold this, which is always a good sign. Now you can also go ahead and hit that button on the side here, change it to single shot mode, where now you're only going to get that feedback and sound every time you pull the trigger. If I just hold it like this, it's still just one single shot. So to get multiple shots, you have to pull the trigger multiple times. Very good action on here though, very easy to engage the trigger, shots fire perfectly on here. So I'm a big fan of this. Now you can use multiple guns, multiple Jarhead guns with one USB dongle, so you don't have to have multiple USB ports taken up on your console or your PC, however you choose to use this. And the IR sensor is super accurate, really great to not have to incorporate 4 into the mix and still get that same reliable experience. Now, in terms of the plug and play console here, it's a little bit limited, to be honest. I like the software. I like that you can access the cores easily, your settings easily, the games easily on here, but it doesn't have a lot of games. I went into the Super Nintendo core, there's no games there. Went into the NES core, no games there. The majority of the games are in MAME, and there's only a handful of games there. The Area 51 game, I didn't have any luck getting that running. So it's very limited with what it has to offer. I think the console needs to, I think you have to add games to it yourself. The way that it is, it's basically just a demo console. It shows you the capabilities of this, but it's very limited. So personally, I don't think that I would go out and search for that console. I think I would just get the gun, get the IR sensors, and then just bring it over to a PC and set it up myself, because I know I can get a better experience with a lot more options that way. They may change that though, or they may just use it exactly as I think they're using it currently, which is just a way to demo the gun without that many games present on there. So the best way to support Jarhead is to check out their Kickstarter campaign. I'll provide you guys with a link to that in the description of this video. If you support them, you can get your hands on a gun, you can get your hands on IR sensors, the whole bundle here that you saw today with the console included. You can even get multiple gun packages on there as well. So definitely check out their campaign, link in the description of this video, and be on the lookout, because I think Jarhead is definitely a viable option for light gun gamers out there like myself. So definitely click that link. That's going to do it for this video. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you enjoyed the content today, please give me a thumbs up on the video. And of course, hit subscribe right here on the Chase Brogan YouTube channel to stay in the loop for all future videos. Thanks for watching. See you guys on the next one.